Got some new accessories today?
She has lost it.
Yeah, Llewellyn is, he's not fine. So these are his accessories. But I'm Looney, and that's him. How are you?
All right, living as it comes.
If you could see how he's standing, like he's
Yeah.
trying not to balance on the one leg. Shame, man. What are we doing for the grade 11 today?
We're doing cellular respiration.
All right. I hope
Which
you
means
guys
what, Lini?
breathing.
You see, they make those mistakes. And it's very simple.
Oh, no,
Making the
never.
mistake. Breathing. Because you, okay, no, I'll give it to you. Breathing.
Respiration. No, come on, man. It's not breathing. I was joking with you guys. Can't I play? Come on now. So, guys, if you want to get a hold of us on Facebook, all you need to do is go to facebook.com/learnextra. And then our Twitter handle is @learnextra. And then if you want to win yourself, see, now I can't move my arms. If you want to win yourself this awesome Cassie calculator, all you need to do is complete the test yourself section from the notes. I will post the test yourself link on our Facebook page, right with the post for the link for the notes and everything, so that you guys don't get confused and that you have everything that you need for the show. No, don't do that. So mindsetters, I hope you guys are excited. And remember, guys, if we don't get through any of your questions for life sciences and you have a problem, please make use of the help desk, because the Learn Extra Life Sciences help desk is proudly brought to you by Excel.
Jeez, what a mouthful. Your essay.
Yes, always.
She remembers everything. It took a while to get her going.
Yeah, in the beginning.
Then the hands came out and we went
Yeah.
crazy. Right. Now, we're doing cellular respiration, right? And common mistake. Everybody thinks respiration, breathing. You see, it's a big problem. It's not breathing. There's a big difference between breathing and cellular respiration. Breathing is taking in oxygen and giving off carbon dioxide, right? Cellular respiration is making energy in the cells.
Oh.
Big difference. Well, Looney's learned something very simple.
Yes.
All right, now we're going to find out how that works. Okay, in this lesson, what we're going to do, if I have a good look, we are going to, if I choose a pen for once in my life to make sure we start off right, okay, we're going to define cellular respiration in the terms of anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration. It's nice and simple. Then we're going to look at examples of anaerobic respiration in industries, so where we use it, if you know what I'm trying to say, where we actually use it in everyday life, okay, because we need to use it. It's simple, okay. Then we're going to describe a few experiments or explain a few experiments on cellular respiration, because you need to know these experiments. If you know the experiments and you understand the experiments, it helps you, okay. Hopefully we get there in time. But they are there, and I have given all these notes up onto the web. Am I right, Lily?
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to post them, and everything
They are
will
on
be fine.
Facebook, right?
Right. Good. Now, let's have a look. Okay, it's very simple. This is your challenge question. Now, if you remember, we did a thing called photosynthesis. Looney, can you remember?
Yes.
Yes, and we had a look at the light phase, and we had a look at the dark phase, right? And the whole point of that was to make food or make glucose, right? So plants make the glucose. Cellular respiration is completely the opposite. It's to take that food, right, and to make energy and use it. So this is the question. Describe how the production of the light phase, I must stay away from that, the light phase and the dark phase of photosynthesis will use or manufacture organic compounds such as glucose, and how the glucose is broken down in the cells and release energy. I'm just giving it as I'm reading it, right? I'm not reading it as we're going along. I'm just giving you the key words as we're going on. So they want to know what happens in the light phase, what happens in the dark phase, and how we're going to change that energy so that we can use it, or how we're going to take those glucose and change it into energy. That is the question, okay? So let's see if you guys can get that right. It's not a difficult question, not too difficult, hey, Looney? Okay, we're using a few months ago stuff, or a few weeks ago stuff, and then we're using stuff from now. So what we're going to learn. So it's actually very nice, huh?
Hey, you wear glasses.
How do you know I wear glasses?
You have glasses on your head.
Do I have glasses on my head? Hey, how cool is that? I forgot about that. Right. I actually forgot about that. Let me put them down so I don't drop them. Right.
Random.
So it's the first time, hey, Looney?
Yeah.
Well, if I have a look at it, let's carry on. Now, you know the challenge question. Please put some effort in and make sure that you give it to me right. Okay, here we go. Okay, cellular respiration. Remember I said we're going to define it first. Okay, it's the chemical energy is transferred to ATP. Remember what ATP stands for? Luni, can you remember what ATP stands for?
Yo, no.
Okay, it's adenosine triphosphate. Can you remember that? Okay, so ATP, and the ATP molecule, right, provides energy to all the processes of the cells. Okay, so we need glucose. And when we have glucose, we change it into ATP, because remember, ATP is what we need for energy. If we don't have ATP, it's pointless. We can have as much glucose as possible, but if we cannot change it into ATP, we can't do anything. You understand where I'm coming from? Hey, Luni? Right? It's like, how do I put it? We've got as many tennis balls as possible, but if we don't have tennis rackets, we ain't going to be playing tennis. Right?
Oh, okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so ATP is very, very important. Okay, and then the transformation of energy that occurs in the mitochondria. Can you remember when you did the cells in like grade 8 or grade 9? You had this thing called the mitochondria and the chloroplast, right? The chloroplast was what goes through photosynthesis, as we learned. And then we have this mitochondria, which, Luni, do you know that the mitochondria had a funny name to remember about? Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, it's the powerhouse of the cell. It makes the power of the cell. It gives it the energy. You never heard of that. And I know you did this when you were in grade 8 or 9. So there's no excuse.
Mitochondria.
Yes,
Never. In grade 9.
It shows you she wasn't listening. She was messing around in class. Right. So the mitochondria in the cells. Remember, all cells have mitochondria. Some have more than others, right? Because you need that. It gives it the energy that it needs, right? And then the mitochondrion is a specialized, adapted for this. It's specially made so that it can do this job. This job is very, very important, and where it gets made and how it gets made is very important. Right, then, let's have a look at the next one. This is what the mitochondria looks like, right? If you have a look at it, we sometimes draw it as this. Right, there's that one, or they draw it like this. Okay, so that it makes, that's what the mitochondria looks like. Okay, so those are the two mitochondria, and over here you see it's in 3D. So you've got this part, this dark black line over here. I'm just coloring it in yellow. That dark black line is that yellow line on the outside, and I'm going to change the color, and this part here that does the squiggly, I don't know if you can see that, let's change to pink, right? That squiggly part over there is the internal membrane, right? So you get the two membranes. It's very important. So that's the squiggly part over there and the yellow part over there. Okay, so it's the two membranes. Very important what happens on each, right? Remember that this is 1 micrometer. Okay, you need to know how it works. Because remember, in grade 10, you learned how to work out how big something is by the size of it, and you could do the drawings, and you can work out the calculation, what's its actual size, and it's not that big, it's like, yeah, small. You understand? Right, okay, then, I'm going to go back to my yellow, because I enjoy yellow. Right, then, the mitochondria has two membranes, as I explained, right? You have an inner membrane and an outer membrane, okay? Those are the two things, okay? Between the membranes is a space, just a simple space. It needs a bit of a space. And then, of course, you get a part that's inside the inner membrane. So remember, if I have a look, if I pull this up, you've got this dark lines over here. This part here, right, is inside the inner membrane. It's just a thin membrane. And inside that middle, as we said here, is called, the inner membrane is called, where is it? Has a lot of folds. You've got to have folds. Those folds are very important, because those folds, that is where the energy gets made, right? And if the energy gets made there, if we have it folded, it means it can create a larger surface area. And the more surface area, because it starts on there, right? The larger the surface area, the more chance it has, or the more place it has of making energy. Hey, am I right, Luni? You're not concentrating. I'm going to be catching you today. I can see it. I hope you're with me. We're going to be catching it. Right. So the inner thing is called, it's got, these folds are called Christy, right? And the space inside, so remember I colored this yellow space in. right? That space there, where is it? Space in the center of that whole part is called the matrix. Okay, so that's the important part of the mitochondria. Let me just move that up a bit. The whole part, that inner membrane that goes to squiggly like that, it's called the cristae, right? And inside of that is called the matrix. Hey, Luni, you know what the matrix is? Can you give me a definition of a matrix?
Inside the cristae.
No, it's that movie where everything goes funny and they do those funny
Oh,
movements
that
and
one.
stuff.
Oh, no, don't.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not that. Okay, and then the cristae increases, as I said, the surface area, and the more surface area there is, the more we can increase ATP. Makes sense? I think that's quite easy and simple. Okay, remember, you increase surface area, there's more space to do it. Okay, now this process, this whole process, the cellular respiration is very, very important because you need it to do anything that you do, right? Anything. Your heartbeat needs energy, right? Needs this. Okay, now we're carrying on. We've got this thing called aerobic respiration, and we've got a process called anaerobic respiration. Now, Luni, let me ask you this. If I had a look at the name, aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration, okay, what do you think aerobic is going to use that anaerobic won't? And I want you to just think out of the box and look at the name. I'm trying to help you here. Okay? Keep her in the show. Come, Luni.
Air.
Clever girl, which means it's going to use?
Air.
Okay, what's in air that's important for us?
Oxygen.
See, she is
I'm
good. Oxygen. So this part, it's very important to understand that this part, this aerobic respiration uses oxygen. Very important. If you don't have oxygen, you can't do this. Okay. Now the nice part of aerobic respiration is that because we're using oxygen, okay, and it's a long process, we're going to make a lot, like this much ATP, right? Huge amounts, okay? That is very important, okay? This is the type of thing, this is why when you do, for example, exercises, you breathe, we're trying to get as much oxygen in as possible, right? This is aerobic respiration. We need to make energy and we need oxygen to make it. Right, so let's have a look. Aerobic respiration occurs when glucose, we all know what glucose is. Luni, do you know what glucose is, sweetie?
Mm.
Come on, tell me, I can see you in the board.
It's sugar.
I like that. It's sugar. Okay, yes. It's a sweet. Hey?
Yes.
That's cool. It's something sweet. It's sugar. I like
Exactly.
that. I must tell that all the time. Right. So it's when we take glucose, right, and we break it down in the presence. Okay, that's important. In the presence, in other words, it's here. It's not over there. Okay, it takes part of the equation. Okay, when it's part of the equation, it's present in there. We need the oxygen, and I'll explain to you why just now. Right, so it takes place with oxygen. There it is. A lot of energy is made. Okay, a lot of ATP. So many ATP molecules are made. It is very important that you use oxygen. Most of the time, whenever you walk, whenever you do anything, you're doing it slowly, you're breathing, you're using aerobic respiration. Okay, now, aerobic respiration has got a specific sum. So I'm going to show you what it is. Okay, so this is, it's a balanced equation at the bottom. So I'm just pick this up a bit so that you can see it. Okay, so what we do, we take glucose, which of course is C6H12O6, am I right? We take that and we take oxygen molecules, right? The bottom one that I'm doing, I'm not balancing, right? I'm just showing you what it is, okay? Because the top one's balanced. And I use enzymes. Now, Luni, I've spoken about enzymes before, right? Can you remember what enzymes? I've told you slightly what an enzyme is. Can you remember what an enzyme is? An enzyme speeds up the reaction.
An enzyme.
Yes.
Like a catalyst.
That's it. Like a catalyst. What is a catalyst?
It's not part of
she
the...
uses a big word, but now she needs to
No,
explain
yeah. I'm trying to think of my matric, like, what physical sciences. It's not part of the reaction. It just...
It speeds up the
Speeds
reaction,
up.
but does not take part in the reaction.
Yes.
There we go. I like
Yes.
that. Okay, so this enzyme is, for example, right? amylase. Can you remember amylase? Amylase breaks down carbohydrates into maltose.
Wow.
Right. So
Okay.
that is an enzyme, amylase. All the A's, carbohydrates, protease, lipase, all of those are enzymes. Right. So here we go. This enzyme, you need the enzyme, and what we get at the end, we get water. Okay, we have a water molecule. We have carbon dioxide molecules. Am I right? And we have 38 ATPs. 38 ATPs. Okay, that is important. 38 ATPs. Very, very important. Right? Carbon dioxide, what do? We breathe out. Looney, if you go like this against your screen, what is on it?
Screen.
What is there?
Foggy.
It's foggy, which means it's
Moist.
moist. And the moist is the water that we're breathing out, or we send to the kidneys to clean out. Right. I think we need a break. Hey, what do you think?
Oh.
Oh,
Fine.
it's fine. Jeez, I've asked her one question and she's gone. Okay, we'll make it up the next one, Looney. It's
No,
coming.
it's fine. We can take a break. Mindset is let's take a very quick break and I'll see you straight after this. Welcome back, Mindsetters. From that break, if you've just joined us, you're hanging out with Looney and Lou, and we're doing cellular respiration, and we've got some accessories on the table. So, guys, if you want to win this Casio calculator, right, and be like our awesome winner, like here at Dow, who's just won a Casio calculator, I'll just throw in the crutches in there with you. Extra.
Those are mine. I
extra.
need those.
No, you must give them away. So all you need to do, guys, is complete the test yourself links on the test yourself questions on the link that I've posted on the Facebook page. So you click on the link, it's a Google form, you answer all the questions, you fill in your information, you click submit. Entries close on Friday, so you have all the time in the world to stand a chance to win this calculator.
Nice. That was good.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
Right. I think we need some questions. What do you think, Looney? Right. Definitely questions. Okay. Let's have a look at it. First one. It says study the graph. Right. Show it and have a look at the questions that follow. It's nice and simple. That's how we look at it. Okay. There's the first graph. We, pull it across. There it is. And then, of course, we have the second graph, which is down at the bottom. Okay. And they all relate to the same thing. Okay. Now, let's have a look what the question asks first. Why does lactic acid build up between A and B? Okay, so let's go find it. A and B. There's A, okay, and there's B. B is your oxygen, so let me get that, O2, okay. A is your exercise, and C, well, this dark line over here would be your, let me just get it. It could be your exercise. I'm trying to think now how I would interpret this question, okay, because the way I see. So the one will be your exercise, the one will be your oxygen, and the other one will be your ATP. ATP. Okay, cool. Now, let's have a look at it. What does lactic acid build up between A and B? So why does it build up? A, remember, is your exercise. So you're having exercising, right? And the exercising is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? But it's exercising with very low amount of oxygen. Can you see it? The oxygen level is very low. Now, if the oxygen level is very, very low, what is going to happen? Okay? You are not going to go through aerobic respiration. You're going to go through anaerobic respiration. And remember, anaerobic respiration is where you can take glucose and you go to pyruvic acid, right? We've made 2 ATPs, but we're not going to send it through that thing called the Krebs cycle, right? We're going to take it and we're going to take that pyruvic acid and we're going to move it in to make it lactic acid. So if you're doing exercises with not enough oxygen, we make lactic acid, and that is anaerobic respiration. Am I right, Looney? Oh, I'm going to say something wrong just now and you're going to have to fix it. Right, so you're happy with that. That's the first answer, the question. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Okay, it says here, oxygen is required. There is more oxygen that's required than there is available. So in other words, they're doing the exercises, but there's not enough oxygen there. So they're not breathing as much, or we're doing more exercises, or we're doing more work, or we're using more ATP than what oxygen we have. So we're going to create lactic acid. We can't go through the Krebs cycle, right? So we're using more oxygen than it is supplied. Therefore, anaerobic respiration takes place, right? And the anaerobic respiration produces lactic acid. It's a simple answer, right? Now that's the way where you're going to get your marks for. The first one is we're using more oxygen than what we're getting in. Okay, so you're going to get a mark for that. And then, of course, it tells you that anaerobic respiration is taking place. And then what are we making because of it? We're making your lactic acid. It's nice and easy. Okay, if we have a look at the next one. Why does the amino acid... Oh, I better keep my pen. Why does the amount of oxygen taken place into an increase once the exercise has stopped? So why do you carry on breathing? Okay, so the whole point of this is why is it that when you finished exercising, so you run 100-meter sprints, right? You run the 100-meter sprint, and when you finish, why don't you run past the line and go and you just stand normally? Hey Looney, why do you do that? Why do you run past the finish line of 100-meter sprints and go?
Because you've just finished and you're tired and you need to breathe.
You need to breathe. She makes it sound so beautiful. It's not, but anyway. Okay, what happens is you still need to replace those ATPs. You need that ATP in your body, right? So what happens is we're putting the oxygen in so that we can actually use the energy. Now, if you take lactic acid, okay, so we make lactic acid and you add oxygen to it, right? We automatically make ATP, right? Not ATP, we make glucose again so that we can make ATP again. So we want to get as much oxygen as possible so that we can put it with the lactic acid, break down that lactic acid and make ATP again. But if we take this oxygen and we take with the rest of the glucose that we have and we make ATP, at least we recover nice and quickly. Okay, I'm just putting it out there. So let's see. Because if you have a look at here, B is the oxygen. So the oxygen comes along, it goes up. As we get to a certain point, now we're going to start doing aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration takes place. We don't need that much more oxygen, and it goes back down. Okay, so let's look at the question. The question was, why does the amount of oxygen taken continue to be in a high amount even though you finished? Right, and the answer is, let's go through there. Firstly, during exercise, anaerobic respiration also takes place. Okay, well, sorry, aerobic respiration also takes place. It doesn't mean that if the one's taking place, the other one doesn't, because you're still breathing. But you're making, every time you go through the process of aerobic respiration, you still need more ATP. So some is going through anaerobic respiration while some is going through aerobic respiration. Right, so you still need to produce that ATP, right? Then, okay, even though you stop exercising, okay, where am I now? Oh, yeah, that's it. Anaerobic still takes place. Then it is the producing carbon dioxide, which accumulates in the blood. Okay, now, you know that you need a thing called homeostasis, right? Now, homeostasis is very important in the body, okay? Carbon dioxide is very important to us, and so is oxygen, okay? So we take oxygen in and we give off carbon dioxide. But every time we go through the thing called the Krebs cycle, we're making carbon dioxide. So now we put that in the blood, okay? Now I need to take that carbon dioxide and get rid of it, okay? If there's too much carbon dioxide in the body, it's very bad for us. So we pull in oxygen so that we can take the carbon dioxide out and put the oxygen in, okay? Just remember, people do hyperventilate. That's when they get off too much carbon dioxide, so we need to put carbon dioxide back in the body. That's why we breathe through a brown plastic bag. Hey, brown paper bag. Can you remember that, Lini? You see, she's lost. She's typing. She's not listening to us. Right, so it's very important to have that homeostasis. There's too much carbon dioxide in the body, so we need to get rid of it and get more carbon dioxide in. Right, okay? And then an increase in carbon dioxide causes an increased rate of breathing to continue long after the exercise has happened, right? So even though we've stopped exercising, because there's so much carbon dioxide in the air, we need to get rid of it, so we need to take in oxygen and get rid of the carbon dioxide. But we also, don't forget, you still need to go through your aerobic respiration to create that ATP that is still happening inside the body. We need to get that ATP back. We need to replace it. Right. Okay, cool. So, let's go to the next question. Okay? If you continue exercising, you would probably end up with muscle cramps. Can you explain why? Ooh, Looney, why would you get muscle cramps if you carry on exercising?
Because you're not giving your body time to rest.
Nice. I like that. Doesn't give the time body to rest. We'll make her a life science student one day. One day. One day. She's getting better. Now that you put your hands in it. Exactly. Now that you put your hands in that
you're
stuff.
not giving your body enough time to recover.
Yes, but if you carried on.
Yes.
Why would you go into cramps? Now that's a good question.
Because you're losing oxygen.
We've made too much lactic acid. That's it. We've made too much lactic acid. And lactic acid stops the muscle from working. Right? So it like makes the muscle go, I quit. Right? That is the whole point. Okay? It stops you from over destroying your muscle. Okay? Because if you work your muscle over and over again, it doesn't have enough ATP. It doesn't have oxygen. It's like, you know these people, you see these guys that pass out. And they normally say there was not enough oxygen to the brain. Yes? Can you remember that? Have you all heard that?
Yes.
Okay? Now, that there, it's the same as the muscles. If the muscle doesn't have ATP, right, it cannot do its job. Now, you know, and I know, and Looney knows, because you've done, what's that stuff called? Athletics. Have you never done athletics or watched it?
When I was younger.
Yes, yes. And you're running that long distance, 1,500 meters. Right, and you come around that last bend and you want to run. Am I right, Looney?
Yeah.
And you give it everything. Yeah, and you're running and the head's going and the arms are going and the legs are going. But you can walk faster.
Really?
Have you ever seen that? The guys are running, you have no idea, they're giving it everything, but they are running so slowly because their body can't do it any faster. They don't have any more energy. Right, they can't do it anymore. Same thing, the bodies are starting to quit. Okay, so let's have a look at the answer for this. Right. Okay, it's a nice, simple answer. I'm going to move it up. Okay, it is exercise has taken place under anaerobic respiration, as I was saying, right? Because of the shortage of oxygen, which is a simple answer, right? Okay, then it says, resulting in the accumulation of lactic acid. This will build up this will build up, and the lactic acid causes the muscle to become paralyzed roundabout, right? So become paralyzed. There it is. Okay, it paralyzes the muscle. It says, hold on, but I can't do this anymore. Okay, so it paralyzes the muscle, so the muscle doesn't work anymore. Okay, and then the lactic acid is converted into crystals, and the muscle results in pain. So in other words, I know I did fitness when I was younger. I did sport, and after you've done a good fitness session, right? Hey, Looney, you've had this before. You go to gym. Yeah? First time you go to gym in ages and you go on the treadmill and you're running and all that other stuff and you feel good, and the next morning you wake up, you go,
yeah,
it's not going to work. Yeah? That is lactic acid. How stiff is that? Okay? It's the same thing. Okay, your body isn't used to working. Yes, it's more things than that, but that lactic acid, that stiffness is a building up, and then you touch your muscles and they're sore and they're not happy, and hey? You know this all, Haley. Okay, so that is the whole point of it. Okay, now, if I have a look at the next question, okay, explain why. Yeah, we go. This is always good with athletics, right? So explain why a 1,500 meter runner could not possibly run a race at the same pace as a 100 meter sprinter. Hey, Looney, why can't they do that? Why can't a 1,500 meter runner sprint 4 times around the field at the same pace that 100 meters sprints 100 meters?
Because they're not trained to do it.
No, even the best in the world cannot.
They're not used to it.
Sorry, can't do it. It's impossible.
What?
See, that's the question. Why? That's the question. Okay, remember that 100 meter sprinters is very quick. They go through anaerobic respiration. They don't need oxygen. Okay, so they run that 100-meter sprint and they finish, and their muscles have used 2 or 3 ATPs, right? So it's there. It's a small amount of ATP. So they got a few from aerobic as they were running, very little, but a lot of it came from anaerobic respiration, right? Where the 1,500-meter runner, he jogs it. He jogs it at a fast pace, but he jogs and he grabs in all the oxygen, nice deep breaths, and as he's doing that, he's going through the Krebs cycle and the oxidative phosphorylation and all of those things, and he's making 38 ATP all the time so that he's got energy to do it. Whereas if he sprints it, he's doing too much work for not enough oxygen, which means he's going to make lactic acid and his muscles are going to paralyze, they're going to stop working. And that's why you see these people, they run out of the blocks, they sprint in the beginning, and what do? They hit that thing called the wall. Have you ever heard of it? You see them sprinting, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, and they can't move anymore. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
It's called hitting the wall. That's exactly what it is, right? You've got no more energy, you can't do any more work, and you're not going to run fast enough. And that's where these guys pass you and they laugh because you sprinted. Right, never a good thing. Okay, so let's have a look at what the answer is, right? I like my finger quite nicely, it does well with a pen. Right, a 1,500-meter runner will use aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration almost equally. Okay, so they're going to use both because they're running fast, but they're also using aerobic respiration at the body. So they're going to get 2 ATP plus the 38 ATP. Okay, now it might not sound right, but let me put it this way. Aerobic respiration gives 38 ATP, but you need the 2 from the first part, glycolysis, right? Now, if I took 2 things where glycolysis happens, this one carries on going through to the Krebs cycle and the oxidative phosphorylation, and it makes 38 ATP, and this one comes down to the to create lactic acid and makes 2 ATP, which will make 40 ATP. We happy? If you had to both go through aerobic respiration, they'll both go through glycolysis, they'll both go through the Krebs cycle, they'll both go through oxidative phosphorylation, and they'll both make 38 ATP. Right, so that is if you just use aerobic. Now, that's if you do a nice slow run and it's not as good. If you do the way they run it, they're doing it fast, they're using both at the same time. Right, because you need a bit of lactic acid, it's quick energy. Okay, so first of all, they use it almost immediately. A 100-meter runner uses anaerobic respiration only, and therefore the muscles of the 1,500-meter runner will not be able to work or not use anaerobic respiration, right, at that high rate. He will not be able to make 38 ATP or that amount of ATP to sustain him running that 1,500 meters. Right? Very important. You can only do so much work with anaerobic respiration. You can do a lot more with aerobic respiration. So oxygen is very, very important to us. Right. Okay. Let's have a look at the next one. If a marathon runner starts too quickly, they are unlikely to finish the race. Explain your answer. Oh, come on. That's exactly what I just said to you. Hey, Looney. What are they going to hit?
The wall.
The wall. Right. They cannot carry on. Remember, the lactic acid is going to almost like paralyze the muscles, so you can't go anywhere. Hey, Looney? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's have a look if I'm right. Well, if Looney's right, should I say. Okay, the marathon runner obtains their energy mainly from aerobic respiration. Okay, if they start off too quickly, they won't have sufficient oxygen and the muscles will be forced to use anaerobic respiration, which produces lactic acid, right, which might be converted into crystals, causing cramps. Okay, so if you start off too fast and you're not used to running at that rate, it's going to cause cramps. That's why you have to train to do running. Okay, your body's going to do that in the beginning. It's going to start making into cramps, but your body gets used to taking the right amount of oxygen to work at it. Right, it's very, very nice. I think very important to know your stuff before you do sport. Right, and Looney, what do you think? I think we need a break.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely need a break. Definitely.
Okay.
So, it's all yours, Looney.
Okay, cool. Mindset is take a very quick break. What?
You're like
And,
lost today.
and we'll see you straight after this. Welcome back, Mindsetters, from that break. I hope you guys are still enjoying the lesson. It's time for the challenge question.
Just straight on. No funny
Yes.
gags, no nothing. Just
No,
take
mustn't
it.
waste time. It's almost over,
It's
so.
almost over. Okay.
Yeah.
So the challenge question again. Okay. The challenge question was, it's nice and simple. The challenge question was, describe how the product of the light phase, in other words, what happens in the light phase, are used in the dark phase, which is the whole process of photosynthesis, right? To manufacture organic compound such as glucose, and how these glucose are broken down in the cell to release energy. So in other words, this whole question says to you, what happens in the light phase? Remember, the light phase, we take a water molecule, we take sunlight splits the water molecule, we create oxygen, we release it, we get the hydrogen and the ATP, right? We send that to the dark phase. So we've sent hydrogen, which is NADPH2, and we send the ATP down to the Krebs, to the Kelvin-Bentley cycle. Benson cycle, sorry, the Kelvin-Bensel cycle. That's how I remember it. Kelvin-Bentley cycle. It's the Kelvin-Bensel cycle. Right, and that is where the dark phase happens. In the dark phase, we grab carbon dioxide, right, and we've got water. Got some water, right? And we take carbon dioxide, we take the hydrogen, we've got the water, and we make ATP. And we've got the ATP, which is energy, and we make glucose, which is C6H12O6. Does this all make sense? Now we've made glucose. Now this glucose is what we need. So now, of course, I'm going to put it in this way. We're going to eat the glucose, right? So these sweets and that. And now I've got these glucose. Now I need to make the energy, because glucose means nothing to me. Okay? It's the energy that it's carrying inside. Now, I know somebody asked me, is ADP, right, and the P, are they found inside the body? Now, ADP is adenosine diphosphate. It is inside the body. But we need energy to bond the phosphate and the ADP together, and they are found inside the body, right? That's why you've got to take your minerals and your mineral salts and that, so that we have that in the body all the time. We don't just get the P from eating, right? It's not part of the system. It doesn't happen in glycolysis. It has to be in the cell already. This is just ADP and a phosphate, or adenosine triphosphate, adenosine diphosphate, plus a phosphate will join if there's energy, and the phosphate and the ADP is found in there together. You know which person I'm talking about, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll show you.
It's the one is ADP, ADP plus P.
It's Bongi. Bongi.
Okay, it is found in there. Right. Okay, now, that was the first thing. Now, where was I? Oh, yes. So I take in this ATP, this glucose, right? And now we go through the process of glycolysis. Now, glycolysis is quite simple. I take glucose molecules, I break it down, but I use energy to break it down. So I use 2 ATP, right? And I break it down into fructose. We happy with this? Then I break fructose down into pyruvic acid. And to break it down from fructose to pyruvic acid, I gain 4 ATPs. So let me write this down, okay? Because it'll be cool, as long as you can understand it. So what I'm going to do. Okay, so, and I'm going to abbreviate, so stick with me here. Okay, right. So I'm taking glucose, a GL. Okay, I'm going to lengthen this a bit more. I'm going to take glucose, right? And I'm going to break it down into fructose, right? I'm going to break it down, and that needs energy. So I need energy to break it down. So I'm going to take ATP, and I'm going to change it into ADP plus P. Okay, so I need energy, okay? And I'm going to use 2 of those. So I'm going to use 2 ATP to make 2 NADPH2s, okay? Now I've made fructose. Now from fructose down to pyruvic acid, right? To go there, I'm going to make ADP plus P. I'm going to make 4 of them. And I'm going to change it to 4 ATPs. Do you all understand it? Now that is called glycolysis. Okay, now look at this. If I've made 4 and I've used 2 in the beginning, how many have I made? Looney?
If you've made 4.
If I've made 4 but I
You've
used 2 in the beginning, how many have I made? Used 2, so I used 2. And I gained 4.
You used?
I used 2
You
and I
used to
gained 4.
gain 4.
So it's I know it's difficult in maths,
You used-
and I'm bad at maths. Me, I'm bad. But if I've got 4 and I used 2, I've got 2 left.
You've got 2 left, yes.
Yeah, there we go. So we've made 2
What are you talking about? You used 2 and you gained 4.
ATP. That's it. We used 2 and I gained 4. So if I'm on 0 and I use it, I go -2 and I gain 4, I'm going to have +2.
Oh, +2. Oh,
There we go.
cool.
Okay, so
Fine.
that is glycolysis.
Anyway.
Okay, from glycolysis, now we've got this certain things. Now, I've left out a couple of things, like NADP, okay, because it's NADP in cellular respiration, okay, and a couple of other things, okay, other ATP molecules that are made, well, no ATP, I've given you the ATP molecules, but I haven't given you the NADH molecules. Right, then, this pyruvic acid, because there's 2 of them, okay, because fructose makes 2 pyruvic acids. Do you understand why we get 4 ATP? 2 from that one, 2 from that one. Okay. This is a 2-carbon compound, roundabout. Now, I'm going into big detail, just so that you can understand. It's a 2-carbon compound. Now, the Kelvin-Bensley cycle, right? Because we need to go through the Kelvin-Bensley cycle to understand it, okay? That whole cycle, okay, starts with a 4-carbon compound. Now, I'm just putting it out there. 4-carbon compound. Pyruvic acid is a 2-carbon compound. Stick with me, yeah? I know it sounds confusing, but stick with me, yeah? Okay? And it puts it in here to make a 6-carbon compound. Okay? And the 6-carbon compound loses a carbon, and it gives off carbon dioxide. Okay? Makes it a 5-carbon compound, not an 8. Come on. Help me out here. Okay? Makes a 5-carbon compound. Okay, that is supposed to be carbon, not carbon dioxide. Okay, 5-carbon compound, and then back to a 4-carbon compound. That's the whole process. And every time we lose a carbon, we create carbon dioxide. That's where the carbon dioxide comes from. Right. Now, during this process, we're making things called NADP. Okay, and we're making FADP. Okay, we take all of those things, all the NADPs and the FADPs and all of that. You don't need to know this. This is just so you can understand. And we send it to the next process called the electron transport system, or oxidation phosphorylation. Okay, now we've got stairs on this, so this is what it looks like. Okay, simple, and it jumps down. The NADPH jumps down. Okay, every time it jumps down, it releases a certain amount of ATP. Okay, and at the end, we end off with 36 ATPs in this process. But didn't we have 2 right in the beginning? Hey, Looney? Remember we gained 2. So 36 plus the 2 that we got in the beginning makes 38 ATPs. Okay, so that's the whole process. That's how we make 38 ATPs. In a nutshell. Okay, you don't have to know it in this much detail. But you know electron transport system, or oxidative phosphorylation is the end part. The middle part is your Krebs cycle. You don't need to know how it works as much, but it's nice to understand it a little bit. And then you get glycolysis, which is changing glucose into fructose, fructose into pyruvic acid. Right, now this pyruvic acid, to be able to go onto the Krebs cycle, you need oxygen. If you don't have oxygen, you take this pyruvic acid and you make lactic acid. And if I have lactic acid, I've only made 2 ATP to use. Can you understand? So it's not a great way of making energy, but it's a quick way. Okay, we only have to do a little piece of it to make ATP. But then we get lactic acid. Right, do you understand? Now, the question was, if I go back up, I've explained to you about photosynthesis and what happens and how we make glucose. Now we're doing the rest, and I showed you how we use the glucose to make energy. Okay, so let's have a look at the answer. Now, I'm not going to put in that much detail, but it was nice to tell you about it. Right, so let's have a look at it. Okay, photosynthesis, the production of the light phase are ATP and an energy-rich hydrogen, which I said, NADPH2. Right, and that is required in the dark phase. Nice and simple, right. Okay, the reaction in the dark phase takes place in the stroma, okay, of the chloroplast. You all remember what a chloroplast looks like? It's that thing with the lines like this. Can you remember? One of them are joined. Hey, that's what the chloroplast looks like. Okay, cool. The carbon dioxide is used to produce oxygen. So we take in carbon dioxide and we give off oxygen. That's another key thing that we need. Right, next one. Which combines with a high energy hydrogen atom. Okay, this we got from the light phase, and that whole thing forms carbohydrates such as glucose and starch, which I told you about. Right, now we take that glucose, right, the high energy hydrogen atom and the ATP from the light, I'm sure we did that now, that whole thing of the light phase, we grab all that energy and we put it into bonds of the C6H12O6, and that creates the glucose molecule. From the glucose molecule, we take it in, okay, and then we break down the glucose into the different stages, from glucose to fructose, from fructose to pyruvic acid, okay, pyruvic acid, we break it all the way down to the electron transport system, or oxidative phosphorylation, to make the energy, and we give off water and carbon dioxide. That's the whole process in a nutshell. Okay, now, I know that there's questions, right? So I'm going to do some questions before we go. Hey, what do you think, Lily?
Mm-hmm.
I know one of the questions.
Which one?
Let me see. I just don't remember the name. It's, what is glycolysis?
Yes.
And I explained glycolysis. It's the front piece. It actually goes glucose, fructose, galactose, and then you got your pyruvic acid, but you don't have to know it in that order. You just need to know that pyruvic acid is made at the end. Right.
Okay, that's from Sputa. And another one from Sputa is, what is lactic acid?
Lactic acid. Now, lactic acid is a product made when you don't add oxygen, or you don't take that pyruvic acid and put it into the Krebs cycle. Right? We take the pyruvic acid and we move it to the side. We don't have oxygen, and it creates an acidic base that becomes crystallized, and that's what makes your muscles quite sore. You do know that in humans we create lactic acid, but in plants we use stuff that I'm sure your dad and my dad love, right? They don't do it often, but they do use it. Looney does it now and then, very seldom, very, very seldom, but she does use it. What is it? Think about it. Wine, beer,
alcohol.
Alcohol.
I use it.
Of course, she's taking that smile. She knows. Right. So what happens is, okay, when a plant goes through it, instead of when it makes pyruvic acid and it doesn't connect to oxygen, what happens, instead of making lactic acid, it makes alcohol. Okay. So in industries, how do we use? What do? We add or we make alcohol. What about bread? Okay, we use yeast. Okay, and yeast is also the same thing. We're using anaerobic respiration, right? And it produces these makes the bread rise. So we use anaerobic respiration to make bread rise. How cool is that? Okay, another question.
What is the fructose, which you always mention?
Fructose is a simpler sugar. You normally get it from fruit. It's just an easy way. You take glucose into fructose, fructose into pyruvic acid. It's just a simple sugar. Like, remember, you got carbohydrates, and we break it into maltase, and from maltase we broke it into simple sugar, which is glucose. Can you remember that? It's the same thing. So glucose, in this case, glucose can be broken down even further into fructose. Right. And I think that's all we have for today, Luni.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That's all we have.
It's over.
And next week's our exam revision.
Yes.
Hey? And all you people that are doing exams, just have a good time, relax, breathe, read your question, stop stressing. Right.
All right. Mindsetters, thank you.
Pleasure.
Mindsetters, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye from us.